So if you follow my channel, I think that you are well aware of that I wholeheartedly love the JB Bickerstaff signing, being brought into Detroit to coach this young team. And I've been hearing a lot of conversations since that presser that he did, really disclosing and unveiling what his outlook and plans are for this team. I think there was a lot of great nuggets of information, and I want to dive into some of that in this video. But before I do, this video is being brought to you by Bridges and Stones Family and Relationship Care. If someone you know and care for is struggling with their mental health or relationships, go to bridgesandstones.com and contact them for your free consultation today. One brave act today can create a better tomorrow. The information will be in the description box below. You know, one of the things that I keep hearing, and I think that it's really apropos that a lot of fans are curious about, is what JB Bickerstaff is going to do with the backcourt tandem of Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And I think that there are parallels to what we saw JB Bickerstaff do with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Some of those things being staggering lineups in order to make sure that they allow them to optimize their talent and potential on the offensive end while minimizing their weaknesses in playing them together for long stretches. But I think there are also some really significant differences that I want to dive into as well. Because if we don't understand it, we're going to be anticipating potentially, once again, the wrong things and then get disappointed when we're not seeing it. I also think that there's some differences in how he's going to structure this defense. This is a very different team than that Cleveland Cavaliers team. And if you listen to my video that I did prior on JB Bickerstaff hiring, and I'll definitely post that in the description box below as well, that that team's focus of their defense was completely different than what we're going to see with this Detroit Pistons team. And so I'm going to dive into that, but let me just start off at the top. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are extremely different physical players when it comes to comparing them to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And I think that's really important to recognize because the reasoning behind a lot of the staggering of their minutes had far more to do with their physical limitations and their size and stature than their offensive game style, which I believe is very similar. But how he's going to utilize them in conjunction with those skills and abilities, limitations, and size, I think is going to look very different. One of the first things that I want to point out is that we have to really remember that Cade Cunningham is 6'6" without shoes, meaning that he walks around on the court at about 6'7" and change. Jaden Ivey is 6'4.5" without shoes, which means that he walks around on the court at 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan. The versatility in that backcourt when it comes to their defensive potential is astronomically different than a 6'1.5" Darius Garland and 6'1.5" Donovan Mitchell without shoes. Yes, both of them have pretty good wingspans, especially Donovan Mitchell, which allows him to guard opposing shooting guards and taller players from time to time. He's also a very stout, athletic, physical guard, which allows him to guard up as well. However, being 6'1", 6'2", doesn't allow them to contest three-point shots, doesn't allow them to rebound at a high level despite their athleticism, and it doesn't allow them to really be able to generate turnovers in those passing lanes as a result of guys are able to just throw it over the top. And I'm not saying that they can't get to those loose balls with their athleticism, mainly speaking to Donovan Mitchell, who is a freak of an athlete, but it's to say you don't want him exerting that type of energy to be able to make up for the lack of his size for a full 36 out of 48 minute game, not counting overtime in an 82 game season plus playoffs, right? So these are things to really keep in mind. Whereas you have Jaden Ivey, who's probably his best comparison, is 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan. He can not only guard on the ball, but off the ball, getting into passing lanes. He's going to be basically the same height, size as most opposing shooting guards in the NBA, as well as having that quickness and athleticism to stay with the majority of point guards in the NBA. See, so there are certain advantages that the Detroit Pistons are going to have that the Cleveland Cavaliers completely did not. Now, I do think we were going to see the staggered minutes um, for the offensive reasons, mainly because Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland operate both at their best with the ball in their hands as that lead guard. And something that Donovan Mitchell was able to do from day one, transitioning from an off guard, playing at Louisville, to then coming to the NBA in Utah and immediately being thrust into that starting point guard role because they had injuries and they had a need and they asked him to see if he can do it. And he was able to at an extremely high level as a rookie. As a rookie. Contrast that with Jaden Ivey, who, like I said a moment ago, is his closest comparison. He completely has struggled as a floor general, as the primary shot creator and facilitator for an NBA team from the moment he got into the NBA. Significantly different outcomes in terms of what they have been able to show the propensity to do when put in that position. So, meaning you're not necessarily staggering the minutes to ensure that Jaden Ivey gets to run the point and dominate the ball so that he can maximize his offensive potential. Something Jaden Ivey has said multiple times is that he didn't play point guard at Purdue. That was not his primary role. He was primarily an off guard, which is where he operated best. And so trying him out at point guard was more so along the lines of when they did that with a Bradley Beal and a Devin Booker. It was to allow them to develop their playmaking, facilitating, ball handling skills at a high rate by being thrust into a position where they have to utilize those skills in an ongoing manner. Meaning, we just want you to get better and develop fast, more so than we see you as a long-term potential point guard. Now, I think Jaden Ivey has developed, but it's also been incredibly clear he is not a point guard. And so I don't think that their minutes are going to be staggered in order to put Jaden Ivey as that primary ball handler. I think that's still going to be Marcus Sasser off the bench. But I do think that they're going to stagger his minutes so that he can become the primary scoring option when Cade Cunningham is not in the game. Because Jaden Ivey is, and please understand this, an extremely dynamic scorer on the wings. He has so much ability in his physical and his skill sets that you can almost put him just about anywhere on the court and he's going to be a threat. He's going to have gravity, whether it's his ability to space the floor. And I do think he's going to take a big jump in his three-point percentage. I think he's going to be somewhere around 36, 37% this year, especially with the improved scheming around him. I think he's going to have a far simpler set of expectations, a coach that has confidence in him, and he's going to take the right shots more confidently, more often, right? But on top of that, I think he's going to be having a secondary option in that starting unit and then put into a primary scoring option in that secondary unit. And it's very different than what you saw with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, where both of them essentially needed to be the point guard. But then I think something else that we're going to see is something that was mentioned in that presser was that JB Bickerstaff foresees utilizing Cade as the primary facilitator, but it doesn't mean that every single time Cade is going to be walking the ball up to set up the offense. Something that he said he's going to be doing, which I've mentioned numerous times, and what it's going to take for the Detroit Pistons to turn things around and get back to winning, is that they're going to have to, I would say, throw a battery pack into their transition offensive game. Meaning the moment they get rebounds, they need to be looking up the court for Jaden Ivey and Asar Thompson. They need to be looking for those two individuals to spark an offensive fast break, putting an immense amount of pressure on the defense to get back in transition in order to stop those athletes from getting clear runouts. Because both of those guys, in Jaden Ivey and Asar Thompson, are able to not just beat you down the court, but even if you think you're in position, they can use their athleticism and stride length to either Euro step you or just jump over you and dunk on you. And here's the thing, if you only got one or two guys back, those two in tandem can still score over you by throwing alley-oops to one another, knowing that they can get to a level to get that ball and finish that you can't get to, that most people in the NBA are not going to be able to get to. And so that's something to really be excited about with this upcoming season, that you're going to see a whole lot of transition play and exciting plays that's going to really bring some energy back into this club. Now, I don't want to leave out Cade Cunningham. I think that he is something that this is all built around. He is the franchise player. He's getting paid like it, and it has become abundantly clear he is the best player on this team. He's their leader. He's the one that everybody's looking to. He's going to be their closer. He's going to be the man. And I think that one of the major differences that you're going to see between what you saw in Cleveland and what you're going to see in Detroit this upcoming season is that Cade Cunningham has a game far more similar to Darius Garland than he does Donovan Mitchell, where Donovan Mitchell was that alpha. He's trying to drop 40 on you and then distribute along the way. Darius Garland is trying to get 12 to 15 assists while scoring along the way. Right? And Cade Cunningham at times has been a bit more of a differential type of a leader and primary option. I think that he can get you 25 to 30 a game. I don't think that that's going to be a problem for him. But he's far more LeBron James than he is, let's say, a Kobe Bryant, right? Because LeBron James, he's going to get his 25 to 30. Like, no doubt about that. And he's going to take the shots that he needs to take in the crunch time, in the clutch when it matters the most. He'll know when it's time to turn it on. And especially if you watched him early in his career and in his prime, he had no problem at all being that man, being that dude, being the one to score 30 and 40 points a game. But he was far more 60-40 when it came to scoring and facilitating, if not 50-50, right? He was always looking to make the right play, knowing that he could get his at any time. And even though he did get his, he still made sure to keep everyone included. And I think that that's a great sign where you have a little bit more balance in terms of being that alpha, because I think that that's something that the Cleveland Cavaliers lacked sorely in the playoffs last year and in previous years, where you saw they needed Darius Garland to turn it on. Donovan Mitchell was dealing with an injury, and here it is, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, we need you to go for it. And Darius sometimes struggled to show up consistently and be that dude. I don't think Cade is ever going to have that issue. I think he's always going to be in this attack mode to get his 30 plus points a game. But I also think that you're going to be able to rely on him to not forget his teammates, to be somebody who can find that balance and be an extremely efficient scorer and distributor. But once again, how that's going to play out, I don't think there's going to be a necessity to stagger minutes between Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey like it was between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, because of them having a lot of similarities in terms of their style of play. And so when you think about that, I think you're going to see a lot of minutes, heavy minutes, played with Cade and Ivey together. Heavy minutes, especially in closing times, and when it's in intense competition, meaning like playoff level competition. You're going to see both of them get 38 to 42 minutes in those types of settings. And so, but I think that one of the things that I also want to throw out there is this Detroit Pistons backcourt has far more defensive capabilities than those Cleveland Cavaliers. So once again, that staggering that they were talking about, I don't think that's going to be as much of a thing with this lineup, except to make sure that Jaden Ivey gets his 16 to 20 shots a game, because that's where you want him. He's that level of scorer. He's that level of threat with that level of gravity on the court. But something else that I think that is also going to help this team out a lot, that you're going to see is a benefit from coming from Cleveland, is something that I mentioned before with JB Bickerstaff, is that he's open to experimenting and figuring out what works. He said in his presser, he said, I'm going to look at the metrics and I'm going to look at the math and see what it's telling me and what our best lineups are out there. And I think that in doing so, he's going to recognize that the fulcrum of his defense is not going to be in the bigs and the center position like it was in Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. It's going to be on the wings, where they have tremendous size and athleticism. Between Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, and even Tobias Harris, they have an extremely large and physical and athletic team at the 1 through 4 position. Now, Jalen Duren, we all know about his defensive struggles and where we want to see him this year. I don't think he's going to be a bad defender, but I do mention that at 6'10", right, close to 6'11", he's got a great wingspan. But you're going to be able to tell in games like against the Milwaukee Bucks, even the Cleveland Cavaliers, even the New York Knicks, and such, that his height is going to be an impediment to him being able to have that dominant presence amongst the trees, similar to a Bam Adebayo. Not as bad, but as I say, Bam can get lost amongst the trees. He'll still put up his stats, he'll still have a great impact, but he gets lost amongst the trees to where it's hard to guard a guard coming off of a pick and roll and a 7'2" big man rolling to the rim, right? Those things can be very difficult. And I think even more so for Jalen Duren. And so the strength of this defense is not going to be with the center position. It's going to be on the wings. But you can rest assured that JB Bickerstaff is aware of that. He's not the type of coach who's going to be stuck in the idea of what a team needs to be versus saying, let me see who you are and get the most out of it. But I do think that this is going to be a very successful season for a lot of reasons. I have them between 30 and 35 wins, barring any major injuries. I love what they did in the draft. A video is coming soon about what they did in the draft, and I hope you all enjoy it. But as always, I want to know what you all think about the impact JB Bickerstaff is going to have on this lineup. What do you think you can draw from the Cleveland Cavaliers team that he coached over the last few seasons successfully into the playoffs that we may see this upcoming year with the Pistons? So as always, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Definitely share this video in your group chats and get at me in the comment section. I'm going to respond to you there. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.